Good evening, members of the commission, guests, applicants. This is the November 4th special meeting of the Stonington Planning and Zoning Commission. Let the record reflect that the meeting was called to order on time at 7 p.m. We don't have all the regular members present, but we do have sufficient members for a quorum. I may have to appoint alternates depending on who shows up as we get further into the meeting, and we'll break in the action to do that if we have to. What's the commission's pleasure on minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes for meeting number 1771 from October 15, 2024, to be approved as submitted.
Motion to approve the minutes of October 15th. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded. Thank you, both. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Minutes number 1772. What's the commission's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for meeting number 1772 from October 23rd, 2024 as submitted.
Motion to approve minutes number 1772.
Sorry, I had a comment about the minutes.
Yeah.
I don't, and maybe I would just.
We got to have a second.
Okay, I'll
before we
second.
can discuss
Okay,
it.
I'll second.
Okay, so it's seconded.
Okay.
Now, please.
The first bullet point, maybe I didn't hear it because like on the Zoom call sometimes it's hard, but I don't remember talking about making a whole separate Lord's Point zone. Did I just miss that in the minutes? I thought we talked about Lord's Point and the whole Lord's Point issue, but I don't remember saying like we were going to make it a whole separate zone. I thought we were just going to leave it alone for a while. But maybe did I not hear that right?
So that one, the consultant, Francisco, pointed out that since the residents of Lord's Point wanted to stay the same zone, the RM20 zone, in order to do that with another regulation, which was to combine the RM and the RM20 and RM15 zones, they would basically have to create their own separate zone so they don't get lumped into that recommendation. Right. So he did suggest that it was on the slides. It was just briefly glossed over.
Okay, because I remember talking about it, and I thought that it was like they were going to make their own zoning, their own zoning board and zoning. That I remember that conversation, but okay.
Okay to go forward with it?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I just missed it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. We're at public comment phase. This is a point in the agenda where anyone from the public can make a comment about any subject except an item that's on the agenda. If you want to speak to an item that's on the agenda, if it's in the public hearing phase, and none of those items are going forward tonight. But if you want to speak to an item that's not on the agenda, that's what item 4 is about. So would anyone like to make a public comment? Just have to come up and identify yourself, state your name and address, and we're happy to hear what you have to say. Hearing none, we'll move to item 5, correspondence. Clifton?
None.
No correspondence. And reports. Is this you want to move this report to the end?
Yeah,
so we can get to the administrative items. Yep. And then without objection, anyone have any objection to moving the staff report, item 6, to the end of the agenda?
No, I have no objection.
No.
No one objects?
The whole item, the whole A, B, C, and D?
Just item 6A.
6A, okay.
No objection, okay. Then item 6A will move to the end of the agenda. Item 6B.
Yeah, I had something I wanted to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about, and maybe you can help me since I'm sort of new and I've only been to 2 of the zoning rewrite subcommittee, whatever they're called, those meetings. It seems, the 2 that I've been to, it seems the agendas are really, really overly ambitious, and that I feel really hurried when I don't get a chance to really listen and focus and make decisions, because they're great agendas and we're getting a lot done, but it would be nice to either moving forward see where we're going over the next couple of months, to say like, okay, in November we're going to look at these 3 zones, but I think trying to do like all the commercial and industrial zones in one night, like the last one. And like I wanted to look at things more and talk about things more, and I'm not blaming anyone, I know we only have 2 hours, but I kept hearing, hurry up, we have to move along, because the agendas are so big. And I think it
Right.
would be better to break them into smaller chunks, and maybe that's coming.
I don't disagree that, you know, that there's a lot of material packed into a short period of time. And we've actually expanded it once already. You know, the timeframe to get the job done.
Right.
And that meant more meetings and less to deal with in each meeting. There's no more money left in the study. We're 3/4 of the way through it. I'm afraid if we try to reset the clock, that, you know, we'd have to stop, we'd have to renegotiate the contract, and it would be difficult to get started again because the old data gets stale.
Well, I understand, but
Just
it's.
let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
So I think you raise a good point, but I don't want it, it's not really on the agenda tonight, and I think it's important enough where we put it on the agenda.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is put it on the agenda for our next Zoom call, and let's give it a full discussion and full consideration, and that way we can hear out your point of view and, you know, make a proper decision on it. I don't necessarily disagree that we've got too much to look at in those meetings. It was really bad when we first started, and we were gonna try to finish this study in a year. It was like impossible. We've done a deeper dive than I think we thought we were gonna do when we started this process, but a deeper dive was necessary. So, if it's okay with you and okay with everybody else, I think I'd like to put it on the agenda. Then it's properly noticed. The public can see that we're not doing these things and just talking about it willy-nilly, and it's not on the agenda, because there's a lot of public interest in the process. So I'd like to move it to our next Zoom meeting, and if you could take care of adding that to the agenda.
Because I'd like more people on the commission to be there for that discussion
Agreed,
as
that's
well.
what I
because
think
I think
is
everyone
important.
should be here.
I
for
don't-
it.
I think
disagree.
everybody's opinion should be heard on this.
Yeah.
I think we've got a
So
lot of
that-
people who've been involved from the beginning, and, you know, people have come in over the time. So I think getting everybody's perspective
Yeah.
would be really helpful, and the public, as
As
Chuck
well.
said.
Yeah, and, you know, the public has had an interest from the beginning in this, and there's been a lot of visibility. Some followers that follow the commission more closely have followed it from the beginning. But there was a great deal of interest during the residential portions of it, which we anticipated. And those stakeholders have followed it now closely throughout. So I wouldn't want to make any changes to a process or even begin a discussion where it isn't properly noticed. So if it's okay with you, we'll move that forward to our next agenda, and we can have a full discussion.
Like I said, like I'm new and I've only been to 2, so I you know, just need to get some background on some of it. But yeah, I feel so rushed, and it's such an important thing that I don't want us to rush through some of these really important
Well,
subjects.
I'll tell you, it's going to be a jam-packed agenda no matter what we do.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm interested in hearing any way that we can improve the process. So let's have a full discussion of it.
Thank you.
Zoning enforcement and violations. Anything to report, Clifton?
Nope.
Okay, that brings us to administrative review. First item on the agenda is 392 Liberty Street. Administrative review for a minor site plan modification necessary by building official comments and Department of Health comments at 392 Liberty Street. Do we see anybody here for that application, Clifton? Oh, okay. Please come forward. Just state your name and give us a brief, we have a lot of information on it already.
Okay, Karen Hansen, and it's 392 Liberty Street in Pawcatuck. The original site plan did not meet the code requirement for the 1-inch height from grade to first floor by 12-inch pitch, so the ramp had to be extended to 46 feet
Okay,
on the new site plan. And per legislative requirements, we also had to design the ramp so it's a distance of 5 feet from the existing cesspool location. So this new plan that you have meets all those requirements.
okay. Any comments from you, Clifton? I'll tell you, you're lucky you discovered it before it was actually in place, because these can be really pesky to deal with. I've seen a lot of site regrading that is very extensive to accommodate, you know, something being just like a half an inch off. And there's no waivers for anything like this, so. Anything else to add, Clifton? No comments from the town engineer or any of the departments?
Nope, this was worked on with the building department, zoning enforcement officer, and Ledgelight, and so everyone
Okay.
agrees.
Commission have any questions for the applicant?
I don't.
Hearing none, what's the commission's pleasure on 392 Liberty Street?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the application for 392 Liberty Street as submitted.
Second.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you both. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the application?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Chair votes aye. Thank you very much, you're approved. Okay, second item is 742 Nursery LLC. Is there anyone present for this application? Evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Doug Dubitsky. I represent 742 Nursery LLC. You have a copy of the application, I assume. It's just an existing agricultural field, and we are looking to do some improvements to make it more efficient for agriculture. We're not changing the use. We did go to wetlands, who indicated that the changes that we were proposing were exempt from wetland jurisdiction, and we're looking for an administrative approval to move forward with those changes.
Rare. I don't think I've ever seen a Wetlands Commission say that anything is okay as of right. Although it does say it clearly in Public Act 155 that farming is an exempt activity.
Yes, sir.
Any questions from the commission?
I don't have any.
Clifton, any comments?
Nope, just procedural.
Any questions for us, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, what's the commission's pleasure on 740, the application of 742 Nursery LLC?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the application of 742 Nursery LLC as submitted.
Motion to approve. Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Chair votes aye. You're approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, item 3, Mystic Seaport Museum Administrative Review for minor site plan modification. I see we have the Seaport Museum staff here in full force.
Hopefully we can be just as efficient.
Good to see the hotel taking shape.
It's come along very nicely.
Beautiful.
Good evening, Chad Frost, with Camp Frost Municipal Architecture here on behalf of the Seaport for what I think is an extremely minor, but want to let you guys know. In Rev 5 of the master plan back in 2019, when we did the first Rossi Mill approval, part of that approval included a temporary tent in this back lot for storage of artifacts. As things were getting done in the mill to be able to store boats out there in that tent, as the project went forward. Now, as we're actually starting that project, and some of the other parking back here has now been taken for other uses, that tent can't locate there, so we're looking for permission to relocate it over to this area and put in a much smaller version of that tent. It's only 28 by 44. So the exact same use, same temporary tent, same style that is currently up right now down here in the shipyard for restoration of a boat down there. The details of it were submitted in the packet with you, but basically just looking to relocate a previously approved part of the master plan, reduce it, and relocate it on site. That's all.
Is this tent as big as the one that's down by the water? It isn't, is
No.
it? No, not even close.
No,
Okay.
no. This one, if I remember right, 44 by 28 and only 20 feet tall.
And
Whereas
how
the
big
one-
is the one down by the water? It's like twice that big, isn't it?
42 by 100.
Yeah.
And a lot taller too.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's big. You can see the trusses there.
It's-
Trusses are substantial.
Yeah.
Any questions from the commission?
I don't have any.
Clifton, any comments? Do you have any questions for us?
Nope.
Okay. What's the commission's pleasure on the application for this temporary storage tent by Mystic Seaport Museum?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the application by Mystic Seaport Museum as submitted.
Second.
Motion to approve, seconded. Thank you both. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Chair votes aye. You are approved, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, it moves us to Whalers Inn, RE LLC, discussion on a stipulation number 6, which involved, I believe, the color of a third floor addition. Do we have anybody from, I guess we don't have anybody from Whalers Inn here tonight.
I do have somebody here, the general contractor on site, just in case there were any questions from the commission, but this was orchestrated by myself,
Okay, fine.
so I can present the project. So in 2022, the commission approved the conversion project for the second Whalers Inn hotel facility over on Cottrell Street. And one of the stipulations that came out of it, number 6, stated, quote, "Penthouse levels shall be darkened to a color to be approved by staff." Which, just doing some background and reading into the minutes, it seemed that comment was carried over through the Architectural Design Review Board process. And so the commission, when acting on the project, took in the ADRB's considerations in making that approval. I was speaking with Mark, who's in the crowd, and he basically came up to me and asked, what color do I choose? How do I choose it? What are you going to approve? Just going through both the minutes and then going through some legislative stuff, it doesn't really seem that this stipulation is enforceable. One, because the commission never set an objective standard to which that color darkness had to meet.
Right.
So if you're going to paint a building a new color, normally you have to set some form of objective standard by which to measure it. So that, one, I didn't have anything to back it on. 2, I didn't want to act subjectively of staff and say, oh, I think that color is fine, and not really meet the intent. So I told Mark that I would speak to the town attorney, try to get them to weigh in on how to approach enforcing a stipulation like this. And what I put in the report kind of boiled down to 3 options. One, the formal process would be to modify or delete the stipulation, which would require reopening the special use permit public hearing process, which I thought was time-consuming and unnecessary. The second option would be to kind of go into my interpretation of the regulations, which I'll get to in a second, which basically just means that I as staff cannot weigh in, therefore I cannot dictate what color would be approved, and so it kind of just falls away as a stipulation on the record that staff has actively been told not to enforce. And then the third one would be the commission themselves could suggest a paint color, but kind of going into reason 2 why I don't see that's relevant is because the commission doesn't actually have the authoritative capacity to set building design standards without having actual set building design standards. So the typical way that approvals in the past have gone on, especially for special use permits, Section 15.2.8 gives commission special powers relative to acting on a special use permit. And item C under that regards the design of building structures and landscaping to ensure harmony with Stonington's architectural heritage. And it says the commission can consider advisory recommendations from the ADRB in evaluating the compliance. However, when I read through general statutes and 8-3C on special use permits, there's nothing in that statutory language that gives the commission the ability to do that. However, Section 8-2J does give the commission ability to regulate building design, but it has to be an established village district, which we do not have. Now, over the past couple meetings of the zoning rewrite, Francisco from FHI Studio has mentioned this and said when we talk about building height, building massing, the architectural details of a structure as approved, he said the commission needs to set some building design standards and recommended potentially even considering a design guideline. That would require establishing a village district and then applying a design standard to that individual village district. So, long story short, I don't think I should act as the town planner, and nor should the zoning enforcement officer be able to act and decide what building color should be approved, especially one that the commission has pushed onto the staff to interpret and determine. So I'd rather just go through this process and kind of get a consensus vote from the commission that our interpretation, both mine and the zoning enforcement officers, is correct, and we don't have to identify a color, and then that way it'll be basically up to the applicant or the designer themselves to make that determination of what color is dark enough or suitable enough for their building.
So that's your recommendation then, is really option 2?
That's what I would prefer, just because it doesn't have to go through the
Sounds
process.
like the only thing that makes
But it-
sense
but it-
from what the
yeah.
lawyer said.
Yeah, and it's the most logical and, doesn't penalize the applicant.
Well,
Put you in an uncomfortable position.
we,
And
we
frankly,
could formally go through, like, the correct process would be to formally reopen the special use permit, go through a public hearing process solely to delete that stipulation, close it and move on. That's what the attorney said is the formal process. But I can also just get the commission's consensus that in administering the regulations, staff does not have the ability to set design standards. So therefore.
and the attorney's good with that option too, also fulfilling.
You know, it's, I think the commission has dabbled in the past in architectural conditions, and this sort of underscores that we really don't have that authority. It goes back a ways, but I recall several applications, no one present here tonight that got involved in it, but where the architecture as proposed was changed to deal with thoughts that various commissioners had, and we really don't have the authority to do that.
Yeah, the formal process kind of, it's almost there in the right spot, we just don't have the village district component to regulate it by. So we have the ADRB, which is in effect what it's supposed to be doing, what it's supposed to be doing. We have the commission with the language appropriate necessary to balance the ADRB. We just don't have the district identified of where that area can be and what by what metrics they're being measured on. So it's not to say that, the intention is there, it's just we're missing the one piece necessary to actually regulate it. The other part of that is specifically with this application and this stipulation, it's putting that onus onto staff, which I don't think should be acting subjectively on doing the architectural design of projects
Agreed.
either. If that was to be written down or passed down, that should come from the commission directly on exactly what should be done.
Agreed.
So I'd rather keep it that way moving forward, so that way, whoever's in staff in the planning department isn't making an architectural decision that hasn't been, or a design decision that hasn't been approved by the commission.
Any questions from the commission?
I have a couple of thoughts, I guess. So then what is the point of the Architectural Design Review Board? They have no jurisdiction on, I guess that's what I'm saying. So right now, since we don't have the village district, what's their point? They shouldn't even be meeting because, whatever they say, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I don't want to, belittle the point, but why, you could almost just disband them until we have a village district. I mean, that's sort of a little facetious, but,
Yeah.
no, but if they're coming to us with.
I have the exact same question.
If they're
Yeah.
coming to us with suggestions and we legally are saying we can't follow them, they're wasting, I feel bad for them because then they're sort of wasting their time if they meet monthly or whatever they meet until we get this thing in place. Like I said, I mean, we not waste a lot of time on the.
Well, that's if we do decide to do that, I mean.
But if we do, is that true? So basically they're not even advisory, because even if they advise us to do something, nothing they say we have to listen to. I mean, I'm just trying to see, am I understanding this right?
correct, and the ADRB's been really good with applicants on kind of giving that advice and the applicant willingly taking it. The applicant could always just say no because they're advisory and then come to the commission and just say no. And then you're held by the regulations that are before you, which basically don't give you that capacity.
So-
What they could do, and what they have done in the past is kind of do this negotiation with the commission or the ADRB, where the advice is taken into consideration and then applied, but they don't actually formally have to do it based on the way the regulations are written.
Do
They
they,
don't always take their advice, though. The hotel, right down the street, the one that's the self-service hotel,
Yeah.
that had major surgery done on it by several of our commissioners.
Yeah.
And after, really, the Architectural Design Review Board has architects on it. I mean, you really, those are the people you want reviewing it, you know.
I would disagree with that. I mean, architecture is a
Fine, you
personal.
disagree with it, but
Well, I mean,
but-
architecture is a personal taste, so.
It's a discipline, though.
it's a license,
It is,
it's
it
a
is.
professional
Well, no,
license.
like,
I mean-
but what they're looking at really more is aesthetics. They're not looking at,
Not having been on the architectural review board, I'm not specifically aware of what they look at, but I
Yeah.
would like to believe they look at all aspects that fall under the architecture.
right, but also,
Purview.
but that is also, I mean, I can look at Frank Lloyd Wright's building, but I don't think they're iconic and they're fabulous, I would guess, but I don't particularly care for them and I wouldn't want one in downtown Mystic. So, yes, he's an architect, but architecture is a personal taste
It is.
to some
It
degree.
is,
So-
and I don't
To a
always
degree.
disagree with architects on everything they
Yeah.
come up with, but it is a profession.
Yes,
It is a profession, it's a
Yeah,
licensed
legitimate.
profession.
yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, if you establish an architectural design review board, you know what? It's gotta be staffed by architects. You can't establish one, it's gotta be staffed by architects.
Is everyone honored an architect?
And I would rather have, I guess I would rather have a professional, reviewing that than leave it to chance with a layperson. And I realize there are some people who are designers that have a lot of skill that can offer tasteful suggestions. But I still would rather have it with an architectural design review board. Having said that, I think in the rewrite, we ought to discuss this.
Well, I think, because most of these big buildings that come in, they've hired an architect to design the building.
If
So when
they're
it goes
smart,
to
they do, yeah.
Right, so when it goes to the review board, they're just looking to see, I don't know what they look at, whether it's compatible with the neighborhood and other things. They're not actually architecting the
I think
building.
they look at the color palette extensively.
Right, but that's something, anyway, we're not gonna get into, I mean, that's too much,
Hi, Mary Ellen.
that's too much there,
Just want to
but,
make a comment that Mary Ellen is seated for this meeting, and you will vote.
so can an applicant just decline to go to architectural design review?
Yep.
So if you say, like, that's part of the special use permit, they can say, I'm just not gonna do that, and there's no big X mark through them?
And it hasn't happened since I've been on staff, but it has happened in the past where an applicant has gone to the Architectural Design Review Board, they've given them comments back, and the applicant has said, we're not going to apply them.
Okay. Okay, so that's,
Which is within their
Try to
right.
call the
and
entrances.
then- And then we bring that before the commission and say, this is the feedback from the ADRB. They've declined to apply that feedback.
that's on this level, just one more thing. So, just going back to this specific stipulation, I think it's wrong, I mean, I don't like it, because it says, staff shouldn't do that, and they should have come in with, what do you call it, a color board, or,
Correct.
like, in their application, we should have made them come back.
In their original application, when I attached the architectural design to the back, it was approved with a white.
Yeah, I do remember that conversation about that.
And then they said, make it darker.
But
Correct, ADRB suggested making it darker, and then
Yeah.
the commission took that comment and added it as a stipulation.
Yeah, that's just a
But
bad stipulation, but
But yeah, I didn't believe it's correct for staff
To pick the color.
specifically to pick the color.
no, they should.
Agreed. They should.
Yeah, I agree with that, but just moving forward, I would have, I guess, looking back hindsight and all that, I would have said to them, come back with a color, and make, at the next.
that would have been the logical.
That would have been the logical thing. I'm okay with but it is gonna be darkened, but you're not gonna pick the color.
Basically, it's going to be up to the designer at
To
that
pick a
point
color.
To pick a color of what it's going to be.
Like, I'm okay with that, but I think we really need to delve into this. I know we have no time with our zoning rewrite commission, as we just discussed, delve into this whole architectural design review board.
I agree.
And their role, and that came up.
Because
it
the
did come up in past
commission
meetings.
has teeth, the commission does have teeth. And if you establish regulations, then I agree that it can be properly staffed at this level. But without regulations,
Yeah.
you have no authority. So we have to modify our regulations. And I think this probably underscores the need for us to do that. Then you ask the question, what does the ADRB do? You know, would they stay in existence?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
I don't know.
I mean, I'm sort of
That
joking,
all
but like,
would
what
have
do
to
they
be
do? Yeah.
sorted out as we work through that process, because you wouldn't want to subject an applicant to double jeopardy, which is kind of what we're doing now, because we occasionally dabble into architecture. And we're doing so, I guess, if you read the attorney's opinion, without authority.
Yeah.
So we want to fix that. We're on item 4, Mary Ellen, Whalers Inn. And it's regarding a color on the 3rd story and a condition that was established in the original motion to approve. So,
I think,
But,
I think Mr. Tansky.
you would like to.
yeah, is it appropriate for anybody to speak during administrative review? Is that okay? Can the audience speak?
Not typically, it'd have to be,
Yeah,
a point
it
of-
isn't
it'd have to
usual.
be a point of information.
We'll make an exception, Ben, if you'd like to speak.
Yeah.
Again, as a private citizen, I just wanted to make one point, and, you know, I agree with the comments about the Architectural Design Review Board and the fact that, you know, they don't have any authority. But this is different because they made a recommendation and this commission took that recommendation and stipulated it. So it seems to me that, my opinion, the proper course of action would be, okay, you didn't pick a color, you didn't say what color, so send it back to the IDRB and let them pick a color and then let them come back to you and you tell them what color. That's my suggestion.
That's another option, I guess, that wasn't identified.
Well, I was going to ask that, but
That kind of
does that
falls-
go back to reopening the hearing?
Yeah, I think it would.
Well, yeah, that
Option 4.
kind of falls into it kind of falls into that 3rd option, where through an extra step, the commission could provide the list of colors. But again, you know, in speaking with the town attorney, the commission doesn't have the ability to regulate this in
Yeah,
the
they don't
first
have the
place.
ability to
So
approve it anyway.
why would you continue to
It's
regulate?
without the authority, then, if you take that action, you're sort of now with the attorney's advice, saying, I'm going to act on something I don't have any authority to act on. So, I guess we've got to try to reach some sort of accommodation that doesn't result in a chartreuse 3rd floor.
Well, I think, as you said before, you know, they don't have to go to architectural review, but they do, and they listen, and it's sort of a push-pull. We could ask the applicant to do that, and would say, like, would you mind going back to architectural to get a list of colors?
You realize you don't have the authority to act
Yeah, I
on
was
it?
just going to
No,
say.
I know that, but we also, right, but it's sort of like, we don't have the authority, I mean, they don't have to listen to them anyway, we never have to listen to them, but I said,
Right.
as a matter of good faith on the applicant's part.
I think it actually is a matter of
The
good faith
question,
on
the
our
question is
part.
whether you don't listen to them or don't have to listen. Excuse me for interrupting
No
you.
worries.
It's, the question is not that, whether you have to listen to them or don't have to listen. The question is, do you have the authority to stipulate an architectural condition? And you don't, because it's not in the regulations. And now your attorney has told you that. So,
But we can ask them nicely.
I don't want to spend more time on this than we necessarily have to. It seems that option 2 is the cleanest with everything that we've heard. Can we get comfortable with that and move forward with the idea that, I think your suggestion that we take this up and clean it up in the rewrite is essential.
I think we've heard multiple times throughout the rewrite how important architectural design, landscaping, structures, aesthetics is to the
No
community.
question.
Yep.
I think this is just kind of taking an application, putting it in practice of how our regulations don't actually provide what we're trying
Right.
to achieve and why we need to rewrite them. But yeah, I'll further, you know, put my foot or hand down and say, I would not want the commission actively going against their own regulations. Even if the applicant chose to do it in good faith, they could do that on their own.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable.
But I wouldn't say that the commission should ask them to do that either.
What's the commission's pleasure on item 4, Whalers Inn?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve with item number 2. Do you want me to read it out for the record?
I guess the motion that I would request is that the commission agrees staff doesn't have the capacity to regulate that stipulation.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to, to note or state for the record that the staff does not have the ability or the responsibility of actually enforcing that particular stipulation. Is that fair?
Is that language sufficient?
I think that's.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded. Thank you. Any questions on the motion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Anyone opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
I'm sorry,
She's abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
abstaining? Okay, one abstention. The motion passes. That concludes administrative review. It brings us back to item 6A, staff discussion on commission actions relative to decision-making. Just for everybody in the audience tonight, I know the agenda was posted, but the old business, new business, and public hearings are all rolled forward to the next meeting.
Mr. Chair, the only item to mention, item 8A, public hearing on PZ 2424 SCP. That was opened at the last meeting. The public hearing is requested to continue until December 17th.
Okay, not November 9th.
So I
Yeah,
received-
time's okay.
But
Yeah,
not, clearly
they've-
not moving forward
They've
tonight.
requested an extension.
Okay,
I just received that email this morning, so it's December 19th now.
19.
No action required tonight. Okay.
So-
So if you're hanging around for any of those items, they will not be heard this evening. Okay, Clifton?
Yep. All right, so this one I wanted to have as more of an open discussion. Kind of following the same vein of what we talked about with the Whalers Inn, because that came up a point. Just doing some, sitting here, watching the commission of the past year and a half on staff. I noticed there's some inconsistencies of how we applied either the regulations or how we've made decisions or approved or denied projects. And so I just wanted to do like this as a more of an educational kind of, refocus of specifically what the roles of the commission's responsibilities are with projects. The real reason being is, one, learning a lot through recent trainings. Both myself and staff are, doing our annual trainings. A lot of this comes up. I sent Adriana over to get some Casio certification for being a deputy zoning enforcement officer maybe one day. And so she came back last week with some additional information for me as well. Basically, I just wanted to go through kind of what the Connecticut land use law for municipal land use agencies, boards, and commissions document states. Just run through it quickly, answer any questions, kind of have a brief, open conversation as needed. And then I'll cite things that I thought as I go through. But one of the big items that they talked about in the trainings, first item to cover was the sources of evidence to be used. And so I included it here in the list, but I'll just read it briefly. One, anything that's said at the public hearing in terms of oral testimony. Two, evidence received from staff or consultants regarding information on the record, so kind of the post-close of the public hearing, any additional staff or agency comment that we send out and get back. Individual members' expertise, information, or observation, providing it has been disclosed on the record. Individual members' ordinary knowledge and experience concerning the property and the conditions in the community. This one had a specific caveat as that ordinary knowledge only applies to map change applications, so anytime we do a zoning reg amendment for a map change. Next one, information obtained from site visits. The commission doesn't typically do site visits. You have the capacity to schedule those if you so choose for a specific project. This does apply to inland wetlands and watercourses because they do go do site visits on projects quite often, usually once a month. that basically constitutes a special meeting, and so at the next following meeting, the commission would basically make a presentation of what happened at the site visit, just for the benefit of the public. Next, other municipal state agency reports, and then statutes and regulations. The only thing I highlighted out of this list was sharing relevant expertise on the record. I think that's beneficial because I know we all know each other and we all know our relevant expertise, but if it's a member of the general public or a new applicant that's coming in from the first time that doesn't have that expertise, I think it's just beneficial for everyone to put it on the record to say, what's your specific expertise that you're bringing when you're doing that questioning of the applicant. It's just something that we haven't done previously. I'd like to ask the commission to do each time. I think that one's pretty simple.
When I was on the Wetlands Commission, we had to say that at the beginning of all the meetings if we were going to talk, like, I have a degree, this is.
Exactly.
And we did, like, Ms. Palmer always made us do that.
And so I would like to, take that step and say, we don't have to maybe do it at the beginning of the meeting, but when you're citing that expertise and relevant to questioning an applicant, I'd like to have that on the record, just so, not only the public knows, the applicant, and then everybody around here knows. The next item was decision-making discretion of commissioners. Now, discretion is a word that we use a lot on the commission, or at least I've heard over the past year and a half. When making a decision, there are a couple items that the commission does have the capacity to use their discretion on. One is the credibility of the witnesses and the determination of issues and facts, and that kind of really is more centrally located to public comment that's being provided through oral testimony, but just generally across the board on the issues and facts that are being discussed relevant to an application. The Bar Association made a particular note that the commission may disbelieve any witness, including any expert, but went on to kind of point out that if issues are technically sophisticated and complex, and that quote is coming from past case law, that the commission's disbelief or disregard of the expert evidence must be supported by a credible justification. So you can't just solely disbelieve an expert on a subject just to disbelieve them. You have to provide a reasoning why. And so that's just something that we need to put in the record, because if a project ever did go to court or an appeal ever went to court, then we would have to have a discussion of why did the commission choose not to believe the expert testimony that was applied or came from the applicant. So it's, again, just kind of stating it on the record of why that disbelief is valid. Another one, commissioners shall not raise issues for the first time during the decision-making process. So this would be the period after the public hearing is closed. And the real reason for this one is that the applicant doesn't have the ability to rebut information. So if new information comes out through discussion, whether it's a fact from a site visit, a personal opinion on a project, something like that, they say that that information needs to be brought out during the public hearing process so the applicant can rebut. But if the public hearing is closed, the applicant can't rebut, then there's a question of whether or not that is influencing the commission, that comment. And in some cases, that's actually been considered ex parte communication, which we can't do, obviously. So that's another item. The last item on the public hearings, Chuck, you do a great job every time somebody comes in to ask if they've reviewed the recording, if they've reviewed the minutes before they can be seated again. So that's not really an issue. I think the commission does a really good job on that. And then going into the reasons for decision, this one, it was actually a bit of a surprise to me, going through and rereading this. A lot of times
Are these changes, by the way, are some of these recent changes, or have these been in effect for
these
some
been
time?
in effect for some time.
Okay.
A lot of these come down through case law, but they've been on the books for, I would say, at least 2 decades. Typically, in all cases except for a zoning map change or a regulations amendment, if the commission is choosing to deny a project, they have to state the reasons on the record of what it's violating in the regulations. In most cases that I've seen, anytime a denial or a vote in the negative has come up, there's never been a set of reasons stated of why that negative vote was cast, even if it's by an individual commission member or the commission as a whole. It's something that we need to start putting on the record in case, one, an application is appealed, or two, if an applicant wants to reapply later and come back with a revised application, they need to know, again, by what metrics are they in violation and they need to meet. So I listed them out, but the only time you don't have to state the reason why you're not for an amendment or you're for something is if it's a regulations amendment or a zoning map change. And that the commission actually has a responsibility to put on the record why they are approving that change as opposed to why they are denying it.
Let me ask a sort of a related question.
So it's inverse.
It's inverse, yeah.
We have had several recent, I don't want to go any more specific than that, but projects that got denied. They started with a motion to approve that didn't succeed. Does a commissioner have to stipulate a reason on the record when they vote no on an application? In other words, there's a motion to approve on the table.
They should.
I vote no. Do I say, as I vote no, the reason is, I think they've failed to properly drain the site without impacting surrounding property, something like that.
Yeah, the courts say you should do that. You should make that an act of practice.
Okay.
Because what the court will do if a project is appealed, especially if it's a denial, what the court will do in a denial is they'll go through the record and they'll try to infer a reason. So if it's not clearly stated, they'll try to infer, okay, what's the gist of what they're getting at as a denial? And then they'll solely hone in on that, whether or not the commission has the regulatory capacity to make that decision. So it's a better practice to state if you're going to deny, if you're going to vote to deny an application, it's to state specifically what. And my suggestion would be to call out the zoning reference number as appropriate. But largely, if we umbrella it, if it's something like site drainage or an issue where it's like public health and safety.
But you're better off citing a section of the regulations.
You can cite those as kind of umbrella terms, but at least that would give the courts a place to look at in terms of, can they regulate based off of this thing?
Understood. Makes sense.
And so, again, it's just a request, because I think it's best practice to start also putting this in the minutes as well, and so that when members of the public are reviewing this or commissioners are reviewing this as well, we have a better track record of, what are the actual issues at play here. I think I've heard a lot of comments over the years, over the year and a half that I've been here, year and a half, that, sometimes the minutes are not specific enough, and sometimes they're overly specific on one thing where it should be more specific on another. So when we start, going through these items, it's better to be very clear on what we're specifically talking about. Stating that on the record obviously helps us.
So if we look like we're going down the road to deny an application, and you can get that usually when we start talking and you get a feel for that, is it better for us to hold off on the vote to let you prepare reasons for denial for the next meeting, we have them all written out? Because sometimes it's hard for us to get the exact zoning thing. And I know, when I was on it before, that's what we would do, and we'd be like, okay, if we're leaning that way, the planner would say, okay, hold off, at the next meeting, I will bring back, instead of a motion to approve and they write it all out, the stipulations, they will go the other way and write down, it looks like you're gonna deny.
That seems to make sense.
Here's some potential.
I believe, I would prefer that, because then at least that's giving me the ability to infer what is coming out of the conversation, and I can put the regulations to
And we
you.
can
Yeah,
tweak
that'll be
it.
much more
And then
But
we
specific.
can
just-
tweak it at the
Yeah.
next meeting.
So just hold, if you see us going down that path, then we just go back.
Exactly.
And
So
say,
I would prefer that too, because, you know, in some bigger projects that I've seen in the past, there's either, you know, larger written descriptions of why this is going to be approved, and sometimes why this is going to be denied. So if we kind of make those declarations a little bit more iron tight, I think at least, you know, in the case a project does get appealed down the line, then at least we have something to cite and say, these are the reasons why.
That makes sense.
so I think if we start going that way, then you can say, you know, let's come back and I'll prepare some
Yeah.
valid reasons for denial. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you. And so you're saying like if four of us vote yes, one person votes no, that one person still has to state their reasons, or
I would,
is that where this is?
I think they
It
should.
says
I would
prefer that, I
individual.
would prefer that, yeah.
But that doesn't have to be as, it's only one person, so it's gonna get approved, but one person will say, no, I don't, as opposed to saying like, nah, I just don't like it, I'm gonna vote no.
Yeah, it's just that
It keeps that off the table.
in case that, in a lot of cases, you know, thinking back upon past projects that I've seen denied, they could actually just be modifications if the commission was specific in what the change needed to be. So the entirety of the project didn't need to be denied, just one thing needed to be modified. And in those instances, we could also do something similar to what you mentioned and say, let's take a pause. Let's have staff come up with a list of potential modifications and then select out of that based on the conversation. That way we're not, you know, just denying projects without giving kind of the
Specific reason.
specific reasoning why, or the specific solution that could be met.
Mm.
So in the case of, you know, come in with a modification and say this would be the proposed change, well, the applicant could come back and say, we don't want to make that change, and then you can vote to deny.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, we gave you the opportunity for a modification, you chose not to take that, now we're going to deny.
Now we're gonna deny it, okay.
The only kind of, again, kind of jumping a little bit down is specificity is really good according to the courts. The only time that it kind of falls by the wayside is during special use permits, where health, safety, and welfare, kind of the core
Yeah, kind of open.
core open concept that the statute states special use is defined by. You can kind of keep that as an umbrella item, which isn't really helpful. But you know, if we're thinking about larger projects that have either a lot of moving pieces, potentially significant site designs, could have cascading effects, things like that.
Would it be better, I mean, we can cite health, safety, or welfare, but if we have maybe specific examples of why we think, you know, it's not meeting the health or safety or welfare, that would definitely help us, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So to be more articulate, instead of just saying, well, I just don't think it's gonna meet safety requirements, why?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what he was saying was a narrative that describes the overarching objection,
Right.
and then a cite of the regulation, where that's stipulated.
Yep.
Yeah, and on the last page, or the second to last page, this kind of falls under what they call catch-all conditions of approval or denial. So health, safety, welfare, character, property value, those are kind of catch-all terms that get used in denials typically. And some of them actually are upheld in the courts, just looking at recent case law. But it depends on the evidence that's presented during the public hearing process. And so you couldn't individually just say, oh, I don't think it fits in the character of the community without, again, citing what that is beforehand, right? That needs to be a significant part of the public hearing process, or the evidence that is made to the commission before that judgment can be made. It couldn't just be individualized. Brought up the special use permit regarding the village districts. The other issue, or the other one I want to point out, is the practice of denying an application without prejudice. Statutorily, that's only allowed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so the commission doesn't have the ability to deny something without prejudice. which has been a past practice. There's no difference between denying an application outright and their ability to reapply versus denying it without prejudice and their ability to reapply. So I think the commission, again, I don't want to infer too much, but I think that's been used as an inability to state what the reason is why the project deserves the denial, and instead is kind of like, just come back and fix it based off of the comments, and then we can approve it. So this kind of has circumvented providing the reasons on the record. So we shouldn't be doing that, obviously. So it's going to just be a practice again of, when we start going down those paths, either I'm going to start asking to, either state the reasons so we can draft up a list of reasons, or we can put a pause until we actually determine what they are.
So this last line in number 5 says, the one-year rule for reapplication is not supported. So I think a lot of times when we say without prejudice, that means like we're saying, oh, you can just come right back. But if there's no limit, they can just come back anyway, so there's no point of saying that.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like a lot of times, and this is just a hugely blanket statement, we deny because they've run out of time. I mean, we did that at one point, right? Like either you have to approve it tonight or, you're out of time and there's no other option. So this way you could say, well, we're going to deny it tonight, but come back tomorrow and reapply because you just let the clock run out.
Correct, and in those cases, it's actually, what the commission's supposed to do is modify the project. So if there are reasons why it's going to be denied or it's not sufficient to be approved that evening, you would state the things that need to be done for it to be approved, as opposed to denying and then reapplying. So it's supposed to be a modification instead. And so that way, basically, it's hyper-specific stipulations. It's you're approving it with the modifications that you will do X, Y, Z, and then we will come back and sign and approve it.
We'll
It's a
cross
bit
that bridge when we
wonky,
get to it,
but
Well,
I think
that's
But I
a
think it's
case by
good
case,
practice.
because if there's too many modifications, we may just say no, because it's like,
But then we would be
there's a
citing
fine
that in
line
the,
between a modification and a site
Right.
plan revision.
in that case, you would be saying that the application is incomplete as required by the regulations.
Because there's too many
Because there are too
modifications.
many modifications, missing elements, things like that.
Right.
Like you couldn't modify to say, provide us a stormwater management plan if they haven't.
Right.
If it says in the regulations, you have to provide one. You would just be denying it based off it being an incomplete application.
Right, or like,
That's very helpful.
we need
piece of
50 more
staff.
parking spaces, you didn't give
Thank
us
you.
enough, because that's a huge change in what the
Yeah, if
application is
it's-
gonna
if
look
it-
like or
If
something.
it's like a vague item like that,
It's not
again,
vague.
you have, well, if it's something related to, like parking, for example, that was one that was cited, that would be a case where you cite what is the number. that
Right.
needs to be read.
But if you
Or-
say you need 50 more parking spaces, and that's gonna require them to change the building size or reconfigure everything, then that's not a modification. I mean, so some of that is up to our discretion, at what point do we take it as a modification or a,
well, again, I
Or-
think to Clifton's point, the specificity of
Yeah.
what we want to
Yeah.
do.
And it's case by
Either deny
case.
or approve or modify. I think we
Yeah.
just need to be as specific as possible and articulate it on the record.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Carly.
I think we always try to work with our applicants
Yep.
and, give them as much opportunity as we can to be successful, but I agree that if somebody comes in with something that needs major surgery, it may just be the most courteous thing is to come up with a list of strong reasons for denial, and it gives them a blueprint to bring it back and fix it and get it approved.
Yeah.
Without putting a huge burden on the staff,
do it
because
for them.
because in essence, we're offloading some of our discretion on you when we approve something with 1 million conditions.
Yeah.
So,
So it's case by case, I think.
and this is helpful. This is very helpful,
Yeah, very
I
helpful.
think.
Appreciate it.
And I just wanted to bring this up, one, as, I go through trainings and learn a little bit more about the specific case law involved. I think it really just circles back to the core idea of, it doesn't matter what your individual decision is as the commissioner, choose to go which way as you want, but we just need to put it in the record, so we need to be very specific in how we phrase things or how we put it.
I mean, actually, we probably have committed some discretionary errors, you know, but I recall one that recently got denied without prejudice.
Yeah, and I've mentioned that a couple times on the record too, and so this is more of just like a closing the loop of here's the actual background of why I'm saying that.
That's very helpful, I think, for commissioners too, just
So-
to understand, okay, this is
Yeah.
why we really need to do this.
Carlene, did you have a question?
I have a question and a comment. Number one, staff should not be designing projects. And oftentimes, my observation has been, you know, they work with you. I will assume you're to help them follow regulations if they're willing to follow.
Correct.
So I don't think, because I've seen applications that come in here over the years, and I've been here a lot of years, that they're just sloppy, they're not well done or anything, and it shouldn't be up to you or the staff to do their work.
Yep.
So you need to send them back. And the comment, that's my comment, and my question is, you talked about site visits. Now, as a commission, you do not do site visits. But what about if an individual commission member wants to go to the site and look and get their impression about what is going on? Is that acceptable, and can that be brought into the record?
Yes. The only thing that's cited is that the member just needs to disclose where they got the information. So if you're talking about on-site conditions, and you actually went on-site, then you have to disclose, yeah, I went here Tuesday, I met with the applicant, and it was just us. And so you just have to say
You have
that
to
you
establish
went
a
there.
basis for your opinion.
Do we need to inform the applicant we're going there?
I don't believe so, no. It's more of a trespassing thing.
But if it's like, if you're going to like Old Mystic Village,
well,
because
so
they're
if
putting
you're-
in a new
yeah, so
thing,
if
like,
you're-
Yeah.
that's not
Or something down
trespassing.
Route 1, we've seen things where you
Yeah.
Yeah, or
drive
if you're
past Route
standing
1
from-
every day
if
in a
you're
certain
standing
parcel
from
of
the
land, you
right
see
of way,
it.
Or, you know,
So-
you live a block away.
Right.
And have like intimate knowledge of the area. It's just more disclosing that.
Yeah.
Not that it's not allowed, but this commission doesn't do site visits themselves like some of the
That's
other
Wetlands,
commissions.
Yeah.
Wetlands
I know, they
does.
usually go as a commission, but
Exactly.
that's not the.
Well, so, but that would be a case of, you know, if that's something that we do need to set up for individual projects, that would be something I'd like to do before it gets on the record.
Agreed.
Right, so
Yeah.
when the application is submitted, you say, oh, this is a project that the commission is interested in, let's schedule a site walk, and then go through the formal process of doing
Well, this
that.
is definitely mandatory reading for anybody who's not here tonight, so appreciate
Maybe
the
listening
good
to the
staff work.
record.
Yeah. One of the, to follow up on Carlene's comment regarding the design of buildings, or, you know, how an application gets to this point, I typically, and this is kind of just my personal policy, I try to bring applications before the commission that I know will be approved or can be approved, and then kind of outline in the staff report what are the problem points or issues that I think the commission should hone in on. That's just the kind of way I try to work with applicants to make sure that, you know, they're not coming in here blind and know what the commission is looking for in certain things. That's the way I've done it. I've always done it. That's the way my staff does it. So we do try to work with them as much as possible, but at a certain point, we also don't get into the design stuff. You know, I leave that to the experts and the powers that be.
Well, I think sometimes other staff members do. I don't think
Yes.
planning does.
Yeah.
To the same extent that, I think back in the aquifer application that we had, the town actually hired its own, you know, hydrogeologist and you know, aquifer specialists and a stormwater management modeling company to take a look at, you know, the whole stormwater model that had been prepared. So, because we don't have any of the modeling software, I don't know why, but we don't. So, you know, I think the engineering side of this does get into, in the course of reviewing, a lot of times if you get something you described that is maybe not fully engineered when you get it, it's just like a concept plan, and the applicant's engineer hasn't thoroughly developed the plan. In the course of reviewing it, you end up looking at it in much more detail. The review comments may look like you've designed it, but all you're really doing is pointing out the shortfalls. But in order to do that, you got to really get into it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no way around performing a detailed engineering review of something like that, just because the applicant's engineer may not have done a good job. And I'm not saying on any of the particular projects, I'm not relating that to a particular project, but it does happen, period.
Yeah,
We've seen it.
we try to keep the relevant staff experts, in their own roles as well. That's why we send it out to
Correct.
Ledgelight, that's why we send it to the town engineer, to building, whoever, is because that's the relevant expert on the item. And so that's kind of when we collect those comments and put them into the staff report, it's kind of the general basis of, these are the experts that are contracted or hired by the town. Based off their expertise, these are the problems that, or issues that they're identifying, if any. Try to keep it that way so we don't bleed across those disciplines, just the same way that I'm asking you guys not to bleed across disciplines necessarily.
Right.
Unless absolutely necessary, so.
Well, thank you, Clifton. Anybody have any additional questions of Clifton on this? I do hope that those who are not present tonight get the benefit of the full benefit of the good work that you did on this. Thank you very much. Has everybody looked at the upcoming items for public hearings? I know there have been questions in the past about what's on for public hearing and what might be on for just a regular meeting, but you should take a look at that. If there are any questions, you can discuss it with Clifton.
I just had a quick question. I know there was, at some point, we talked about the next two zoning rewrite meetings. When are we gonna, because they're on like the night before Thanksgiving, right? And we were gonna reschedule that? There was something that said in the minutes, right? It said, like the November and December right before holidays.
Yeah, and that is something that we should talk about as, the four of you that are here. What are the dates that work out best for everyone?
Because the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is
Because
not a good
obviously
night.
not the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
What's the other one, like
I
Christmas?
would say the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, if that works, I mean, just,
So next month, right?
That would be much better for me. We're gonna be out of state.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking,
out
a
of
lot of
state
people will
too,
be
but-
traveling. a
Oh, yeah,
bunch.
well,
But they're
It's
Zoom
a Zoom,
meetings,
it's a Zoom meeting, so you can do
But
it,
I'm
but
gonna
we have the
with-
flexibility there.
I've got 25 people coming for dinner Wednesday night.
You're not doing it.
I'm not doing a Zoom meeting.
So I think the Wednesday after Thanksgiving is December 4th. And then this rest of December seems really full, so is that something that we just cancel the December one and go into January?
I'm out of town.
I think so.
I'm out of
Yeah,
town.
Because
I-
the last 2 weeks of December, I'm gonna be out.
I'm out of town on the 4th. And then I can't believe you don't want to meet on December 25th.
Or January 1st.
I can't believe that's an issue for you.
Hey, I can attend.
I can attend too. Or
Are
January 1st.
there other alternative dates that I can float with Francisco?
I would be, just because we were saying that we're so behind and everything, I would like a meeting in December,
Okay.
right? I mean, to go 2 months,
That's
because that brings us into like the end of
All right,
January.
no problem with
What
meeting in
other
December.
dates work for you in that first?
December 3rd, December 2nd work for me, even.
those are better dates.
Yeah, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th.
I would do
works.
is that we sticking to a Wednesday or I'm out
Yeah,
of town?
I'm not gonna do a Friday night,
So
sorry,
not-
just not.
No, but we're not sticking to Wednesdays, it doesn't.
Is that
work.
rewrite or what, are you
This
talking
is
about
virtual-
regular meeting now?
This is virtual rewrite.
Virtual
Okay.
rewrite, yeah.
We have.
I guess
we have a
you gotta
commission
bounce
meeting-
those off of,
We have a commission meeting on the 3rd.
okay.
Oh, we already, okay.
Yeah, the
So
3rd
we
and the
have that.
17th, so I could do the 10th. The fourth Tuesdays are bad for me, I have a board meeting.
Yeah, I think anytime after the 10th, you're starting to get into,
Well, the
Yeah.
11th, we could do the 11th, which is like a Wednesday, and it's sort of like halfway in between
yeah, the
November.
11th is close enough. to the
11th
10th.
works for me.
All right, I'll float those, see
Throw
what
those out and
works.
see, like
Yeah,
11th or 18th.
I teach college classes on Wednesday nights,
Oh, okay.
after the 18th.
25th? We're back to the 25th.
All right, I'll float those and then I'll
Or the
formalize that
10th.
in a separate meeting.
So unless anybody has any other business to come before the commission, I think the appropriate motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn this hearing?
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting.
No second is required. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Which one did you come in for?